Everyone, I'm Stephanie Benvenuto, Chair of the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners. It is 9:01 on April 1st, 2022, and I'm calling to order the special meeting of the board. The process we're using for today's meeting is authorized by Government Code Section 54953E, which was added by Assembly Bill 361. This allows the Housing Commission to use teleconferencing and provide the public with an opportunity to address the board through a call-in or internet-based option during a proclaimed state of emergency. The San Diego City Council on March 8th, 2022, declared that a state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to safely meet in person. The council also declared that this applies to all boards, commissions, and committees of the city of San Diego. This meeting is occurring by video conference with all board members, our interim president and CEO, housing commission staff, and general counsel participating by video. For the record, I'll ask each board member to indicate their presence as I say their name. Vice Chair Ryan Klumpner.
Here.
Commissioner Johanna Hester.
Here.
Commissioner Keeley Hubbard. Okay, Commissioner Mitch Mitchell. And Commissioner Melinda Vasquez.
Here.
Good morning. Sorry, I was just running numbers, make sure we get a quorum, so I can keep going. Gotcha. Morning, everybody. No members of the public are in attendance. However, members of the public may watch the video conference and hear the audio of today's meeting, which is being streamed live online. The agenda for today's meeting included a link to the website for the San Diego Housing Commission Board of Commissioners, where the public can access the live streaming for today's meeting. The public has been provided with an alternative opportunity to provide comments to the board through an online comment form and/or a toll-free phone number. A link to the online comment form was included on the agenda for today's meeting, which was posted on our website, www.sdhc.org, on Thursday, March 24th. The agenda and the public comment form explain that comments about items on the agenda will be read into the record if they were submitted by 4 p.m. yesterday, March 31st. Non-agenda public comments submitted by 8 a.m. this morning will be read into the record. In addition, members of the public who wish to speak on an item may call the toll-free number that's included on the agenda. Members of the public should monitor the meeting through the live video streaming available through our website, again, www.sdhc.org. Today's agenda includes a link to the website for this board where the public can access the live streaming of today's meeting. Members of the public should call the toll-free phone number only when the item they wish to comment on is introduced. If a caller begins to comment on an item that's different from the item we're currently considering, they'll be asked to hang up and call back into the meeting at the correct time. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments. However, if a large number of callers wish to speak on a single agenda item, comments may be limited to 1 minute each. The phone line is now open to provide non-agenda public comments. Thanks, Scott. That number is 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue to provide non-agenda public comments. This is the time when members of the public may provide comments to the Housing Commission Board about topics that are not on our agenda, however, are within our purview. The Housing Commission can't take action on non-agenda public comments. However, that number again is 833-610-2513. We did not receive any written non-agenda public comments for today's meeting, but I will now ask our Vice President of Communications, Scott Marshall, if we have any callers for non-agenda public comments.
We do not yet have any callers, but we have a little less than 1 minute left on the clock.
Great. Will you please let us know when that concludes?
Yes.
Thank you. And can the record show that Keeley Hubbard and Mitch Mitchell are with us now? I don't know if we need to make a formal notice of that. Yes, and we do have 2 commissioners who are time limited today that I believe are leaving at 10:30. So thank you, Keeley, or Commissioner Hubbard.
Madam Chair, I have to leave a little early today as well, and but I promise to get the to-do list done that you sent me. So,
Madam Chair, the time is concluded and there are no callers for non-agenda public comment.
Thank you, Scott. We'll move on to commissioner comments. If there are any commissioners who'd like to make a comment, your time is now. Okay, moving on. The next item on our agenda is the report from the interim president and CEO. We'll take a brief moment and just say congratulations, Mr. Davis, on your appointment as the interim president and CEO. But turn over to you for comments.
Thank you all, and good morning, commissioners. So the first announcement I have has to do with our Employee Awards of Excellence. On March 18th, at our virtual all-employee meeting, we presented the Housing Commission's annual Employee Awards of Excellence. Each year, the Housing Commission employees are encouraged to nominate colleagues that they think are deserving of recognition. And from those nominations, the senior leadership team selects 5 individuals and 1 team to receive the honor. In addition, the CEO selects at least 1 person to receive the CEO Award of Excellence. The nominations for award recipients this year included comments about leadership, teamwork, integrity, work ethic, and efficiency as some of the reasons for recognition. So it's my pleasure this morning to share with you the names of the Award of Excellence recipients. The following employees each received an individual Award of Excellence for their outstanding work in the last 12 months. Juanita Cosbrook from our Rental Assistance Division, Maria Gamatow from the Finance Services Department, Mark Rivaldi from the Procurement Department, Melody Yang from the Information Technology Department, and Sia Bondison from the Real Estate Division. For this year, the Team Award of Excellence went to our Communications and Government Relations Division, and that includes Garford Alexander, Debbie Levinson Cruz, Jose Lopez, Emmanuel Velasco, Susie Kaywood, and Scott Marshall. And this year we had 2 individuals who were selected to receive the CE Award of Excellence. These 2 individuals went above and beyond any expectations for what could be expected, both in the homelessness arena and in our Housing Stability Assistance Program. Enough cannot be said for the Herculean efforts of Jonathan Herrera this year and Susie Gallegos. So again, congratulations again to these Award of Excellence recipients, very well deserved. And thank you to all Housing Commission staff for the continued great work that you've been doing, particularly under challenging circumstances these last 2 years. My second announcement has to do with a national award that the Housing Commission received. On Monday of last week, or actually on Monday of this week, the National Association of Housing and Redevelopment Officials announced that the Housing Commission had earned NARO's prestigious Award of Excellence. The award this year is for the report titled Preserving Affordable Housing in the City of San Diego. Our report provided a housing inventory in the City of San Diego, including a first of its kind inventory of NOAA, or naturally occurring affordable housing. Cost estimates for preserving housing at risk of losing its affordability was also included, as well as strategies to preserve affordability. The City Council's Land Use and Housing Committee discussed this report and its recommendations in 2020. And in October of 2020, the City Council approved 7 action items proposed to implement for a strategy for preserving affordable housing in the city. Those actions included the creation of a preservation collaborative, which was presented to this board as an action item at your February meeting. NARO's Award of Excellence recognizes outstanding innovation and achievement in housing and community development programs throughout the country. Only 18 programs or projects nationwide were selected for the Award of Excellence this year. Also wanted to share with you a grand opening at the Ivy Senior Apartments. This is a new construction development that the Housing Commission supported with rental housing vouchers and loan funds. It celebrated its grand opening on March 18th. Ivy Senior Apartments, which is located in Claremont, provides 52 affordable apartments for seniors age 55 and older who experienced homelessness. Residents also have an access of a variety of supportive services. The Housing Commission awarded 52 rental housing vouchers to help the residents of these apartments pay their rent. And we also awarded a loan of $3.5 million to support the development. The units at Ivy Senior Apartments are among the more than 10,200 housing solutions that have been created since 2014 through Housing for San Diego, the Housing Commission's Homelessness Action Plan. Speakers at the opening event included California State Senate President Pro Tem Tony Atkins, Mayor Todd Gloria, County Board of Supervisors Chair Nathan Fletcher, City Council Member Chris Kate, our former CEO Rick Gentry, and Ken Sauter, the President and CEO of Wakeland Housing, who developed this project. And this project is a good example of staff throughout the agency, including our rental assistants, our real estate, our homeless housing innovations, and others working together to create such a vital resource of housing solutions. Lastly, I wanted to share with you the first bond recycling project completed by the Housing Commission. You'll recall last year, this board and the Housing Authority approved a MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, to allow the Housing Commission to participate in the California Housing Finance Agency's bond recycling program. On March 18th, the Housing Commission completed its first bond recycling preservation with Cal HFA. The amount of tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds that is available to be issued statewide, as you know, is very limited and has become quite competitive. Previously, authorized bond financing traditionally is retired and cannot be used again when an affordable housing project completes construction and pays off the majority of its tax-exempt bonds. However, bond recycling makes it possible to reuse the bond authority from a given project. And that's what occurred with the Mariners Village rehab project. The Housing Commission's nonprofit affiliate, Housing Development Partners, completed the rehab of Mariners Village. The tax-exempt multifamily housing revenue bonds that help to finance the project are being recycled through our participation in the Cal HFA program. The construction loan of $19.3 million that was secured by the bonds has been paid off. So $19.3 million in bond financing previously would have expired, now will be preserved and available to be reused for another housing development, either in San Diego or elsewhere in the state. That concludes my report this morning. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All very, very good news. I appreciate that. Congratulations to the many, many deserving staff. I've heard incredible stories of the accomplishments of the staff during a really trying time. And I also just want to say, as a neighbor of the Ivy, it's a gorgeous building. I drive by it twice a day, and I'm just so excited to have these new neighbors. So if there's anything that our local community can do to support them, I hope the community won't hesitate to let us know. So we're moving on to our minutes. Approval of the minutes from the Housing Commission Board's special meeting of March 4th, 2022, and our closed session joint special meeting of the Housing Authority and the Housing Commission Board on March 15th, 2022. The phone line is now open for public comments about those minutes. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We did not receive any written public comments, but again, that number is 833-610-2513. Scott, do we have any callers at this time?
We do not have any callers yet, but we have about 1 minute and 15 seconds left on the clock.
Great, thank you.
That concludes the time, and we do not have any callers.
Thank you. Do any commissioners wish to make any changes to the minutes, or do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell.
Second.
Thank you, Vice Chair Klempner. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Mitchell and a second by Vice Chair Klempner to approve the minutes from the Housing Commission Board special meeting of March 4th, 2022, and the closed session joint special meeting of the Housing Authority and Housing Commission Board on March 15th, 2022. For the record, I'll ask each commissioner to say their vote on the motion when I say your name. Vice Chair Klempner,
Aye.
Commissioner Hester,
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard,
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll add my vote in favor, so it'll carry unanimously. We don't have a consent agenda for today's meeting, so we'll proceed with the action items. The PowerPoint presentations were emailed to all the commissioners on Wednesday, March 30th, and they are posted on the Housing Commission's website. Item 100 is, so we'll go ahead and get started with item 100, which is the approval of the contract with Alpha Project to operate the City Bridge Shelter at 1710 Imperial Avenue. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 100. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. No written public comments were submitted regarding this item, but again, that number is 833-610-2513. And we'll take any public comments after the staff presentation, which will come to us from Executive Vice President of Strategic Initiatives, Lisa Jones, and Director of Housing First Administration, Casey Snell. Whenever you're ready.
Thanks so much. Good morning, commissioners. We're here today to present staff's recommendation to approve the fiscal year 2023 agreement between the San Diego Housing Commission and Alpha Project for the Homeless to operate the City of San Diego Bridge Shelter Program located at 17th and Imperial Avenue. Next slide. The Housing Commission administers agreements for the City of San Diego's homeless shelters and services programs based on a Memorandum of Understanding, or MOU, between the Housing Commission and the City of San Diego that first took effect on July 1st, 2010. The Housing Commission and the city entered into a separate MOU for the administration and operation of the city's bridge shelter programs. The most current bridge shelter MOU will expire on June 30th, 2023. On October 15th, 2019, the Housing Authority of the City of San Diego approved a one-year operating agreement with Alpha Project and 2 options to renew the agreement to operate a bridge shelter located at 1710 Imperial Avenue. The current operating agreement will expire on June 30th, 2022. Next slide. The Bridge Shelter supports the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego, which identifies shelter interventions as critical entry points to the city's homeless crisis response system and necessary to facilitate longer-term and permanent housing placements. The proposed actions will allow the Housing Commission to enter into an agreement with Alpha Project and the amounts referenced to provide for the ongoing operation of the Bridge Shelter Program for a period of 1 year, with 3 one-year options for renewal, contingent on funding being made available for that purpose. Next slide. The program will provide shelter and wraparound services utilizing practices aligned with harm reduction and trauma-informed principles, which include housing-focused case management that aims to resolve programs' clients' homelessness, care coordination and assistance with applying for public benefits, and assistance in locating safe and affordable permanent or other longer-term housing solutions, including determining housing interventions and opportunities outside of the coordinated entry system. The program will operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with a maximum capacity of 139 beds. The program's target population may be flexible in nature, and the program may serve more than one subpopulation at a time. Final determination of the population served is made by the city. Currently, the program serves single adults. Next slide. Basic shelter services will include, but are not limited to, appropriate 24-hour residential services and staffing, a minimum of 2 meals per day in compliance with all applicable health and safety regulations, showers, wash stations, restrooms, laundry facilities, and belongings storage for program clients, routine operating and client supplies, including but not limited to hygiene products, basic first aid supplies, and cleaning supplies, telephone access and messaging services, regularly laundered linens. Next slide.
Alpha has more than 20 years of experience serving individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Through its array of housing and supportive services, Alpha Project serves more than 4,000 men, women, and children on an annual basis. Alpha operated over 600 beds at the San Diego Convention Center as part of Operation Shelter to Home. Alpha currently operates City of San Diego Bridge Shelter for single adults located at 16th and Newton and the City of San Diego Harm Reduction Shelter. Next slide, please. Alpha Project was recently selected to operate the City of San Diego's first harm reduction shelter in collaboration with the County of San Diego to serve adults experiencing homelessness and substance use or co-occurring conditions. Alpha Project's programs include street-based case management, interim bridge shelters, permanent supportive housing, rapid rehousing, residential treatment programs, employment services, and peer support services. Next slide, please. On January 2nd, the Housing Commission issued a request for proposal, or RFP, seeking an operator for the City of San Diego Bridge Shelter located at 17th and Imperial. The RFP was posted and made available for download on the Planet Bids website through both the Housing Commission and City of San Diego's portals. On February 15th, the RFP closed. Submissions were received from 2 respondents, Alpha Project and Lids of Encouragement. The selection committee evaluated, scored, and ranked the responses and determined that Alpha Project provided the best overall value. Next slide, please. The Housing Commission requires its subcontractors to take various COVID-19 precautions and to be in compliance with all local, state, and federal public health orders. Precautions are in alignment with guidance from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Budgets include personal protective equipment for both clients and staff. Shelters maintain screening and isolation procedures, which include daily health screenings and placement in designated shelter isolation space for residents that test positive. The Housing Commission coordinates with the County of San Diego for regular COVID-19 testing and vaccination opportunities at shelter sites. Next slide, please. As outlined in the table on the slide, operating costs for the initial contract term from July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 are $3,176,654, which includes funding for the operator agreement and Housing Commission administrative costs. Please note that we identified an error in the operator agreement amount listed in the executive summary and the amount listed under the heading requested action on the first page of the staff report. The amount is listed correctly in the staff recommended actions and all other sections of the report and is detailed on this and the following slides. Funding for the Bridge Shelter Program is anticipated to be Homeless Housing Assistance and Prevention and Emergency Solutions grant funding and will be determined through the city's annual budgeting process. Future contract terms will be exercised contingent on funding being made available for this purpose. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the Housing Commission Board take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the next 2 slides. Next slide, please. Next slide. That concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any questions.
Madam Chair, I have one question, and then I'll make a motion on this. My question goes back to something I said a few meetings ago about the agreements that we have with Alpha, Father Joe's et al. As baseball season is beginning, is preparing to start, one of the biggest complaints that we often hear and the Padres here is the corridor in front of Father Joe's and the efforts that are made to keep that corridor looking clean and organized. And I think when we approved the contract for Father Joe's, I made a comment about, I think Lisa, you answered, that we needed to make sure we enforced our expectations around, the appearance of the shelters that we're operating with support of the Housing Commission. The appearance of the shelters creates a public perception. And if they're not being cleaned up, and if they're not being organized, and if they're not being cared for, then it creates this expectation that the public says, well, this is the way it's always going to be, and I don't want a shelter anywhere near me. We have a role in this, and we have to be much firmer about it. And so I would just ask, are there clauses in the Alpha extension, in this contract extension, that mandate a certain appearance and organization of the site around the facility?
Thanks, Commissioner Mitchell. Yes, there are, and there are in any of the contract that we think is going to have a potential footprint impact around their sites, and we're very aware that if we don't do a good job with this, it makes it even harder to cite new projects, right? Whether it's shelter, whether it's safe haven, or whether even it's if it's PSH. Frankly, Alpha Project is particularly strong in this area because they don't just use funding within their own budget. They actually leverage other programs like their Take Back the Streets and their Wheels for Change program, which help a lot. But there are specific requirements around the footprint of their shelters that they administer that they're responsible for. They generally go quite a bit beyond that. In fact, with the 16th and Newton property, working very closely with the Monarch School, knowing that there is a school nearby and trying to be respectful of that. Obviously, working with city resources like environmental services and when appropriate neighborhood policing division is also important because they cannot force people to move if there are challenges there, but their goal has always been, and they've been very good in general at keeping those areas clean. I can also send the contract language to the commissioners so that you actually have a copy of that. It's in their contracts as well.
That's fine. I've noticed at times Newton doesn't look great. So I would just ask the staff, make this a point, make a real point of checking in on the adherence to this contract provision, because I think it's a reflection not only on it's an unfair reflection of the people that are being housed there, but I expect the contractors to truly do a much better job, and I think we owe it to the communities that around the shelters, and I think it's on us as the person that is overseeing the contract. So. With that, Madam Chair, I will make a motion to approve the recommendation.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Madam Chair, we do have one caller for public comment on the same.
Oh, thank you, Scott. Thank you. Yes, let's take the public comment.
Caller with number ending 7968. You can begin making your comments. You have 3 minutes. Caller number 7968, are you there? That concludes the comments, Madam Chair.
Let us know if that individual jumps back in the queue. You can please cut me off, and we'd love to hear from them. I had one quick question, but I'm going to hold it until the rest of the commissioners have a chance, but it's looking like maybe everybody's quiet this morning. Okay, I'll jump in then. Lisa or Casey, can you guys walk us through what the isolation measures do look like now as things change? I've got to admit, I'm not sure what the rules tell us to do these days if we've got a positive individual in our tent.
Sure, I'll start, and Casey, feel free to jump in. So we've been really fortunate over about the last 3 to 4 weeks. We've pretty much had zeros, and we've had high testing rates. So we've had high testing rates, but 0 positives, which is terrific. However, we still have to be prepared for that. So we have created, if we end up with just 1 or 2 positives, we've created isolation spaces on the sites, clearing out porta cabins, rearranging some storage, trying to create safe spaces on the sites for people to isolate. We do have fallback mechanisms if we end up with a big surge again. Casey and her team have been working really closely with the city's HSSD team as well on that to make sure that we can respond quickly if we have another big spike again. Another thing that Jonathan Herrera and his team has been working on closely with Dr. Denise Foster from the county is rapid antigen testing. So there has been training delivered to all on-site staff that complete intakes to do antigen testing as intakes come in. We expect that to roll out in the next couple of weeks. We're just waiting for the supplies to come in. So we will be able to test people as they come in to the shelter. And then when symptoms occur, we'll be able to test on site and then determine really quickly whether they need to isolate or not, or whether it's just a cold, right? So that's going to help us a lot. But right now, it's been a very, very low positivity rates, which has been fantastic. Seeing a lot of stabilization there.
That's great. Fingers crossed that's the direction we're headed in for a longer term. Thank you. I do think that this is a positive step. I know the community is desperate for more solutions. So pleased to see our friend and longtime partner, Alpha Project, in the mix here. So we have a motion from Commissioner Mitchell. Are there any other questions, or I'm looking for hands raised or any of that? No, or a second?
Second.
Okay, all right, thank you. So we've got a motion from Commissioner Mitchell, second from Vice Chair Klumpner. Scott, did that person call back?
No, we don't have any calls at this time.
Okay, well, maybe it was just a misdial. Apologies though to caller. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klumpner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
That is 5 votes in favor. I'll add my vote in favor as well. So motion carries 6-0. Thank you, everybody. Our next item is 101, the amendment to the agreement with Mckay and Associates for quality assurance audit services for the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 101. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. We did not have any written public comments submitted on this item. But again, that number is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation. Our Vice President of Rental Assistance, Carrie Bell, will be presenting this item. Carrie, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Benvenuto and Commissioners. I am Carrie Bell, Vice President of Rental Assistance. This morning, I'm presenting a request to authorize the Housing Commission to increase the maximum potential compensation for quality assurance audit services for the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program. Next slide. The San Diego Housing Commission operates the program, which launched a little more than a year ago. The program helps pay rent and utilities for qualifying households with low income who've experienced financial hardship due to or during the COVID-19 pandemic. Through this program, the Housing Commission has made payments totaling more than $191 million to help more than 16,600 households with low income who've experienced financial hardship due to or during the pandemic. More than 46,000 applications for assistance were submitted for this program. Next slide. Shortly after the program launched, the Housing Commission contracted with a third party to audit applications. These quality assurance audits support compliance with applicable regulations and program integrity. They also provide a safeguard against suspected fraud. Among the items reviewed during these audits are whether or not the applicant submitted the required documents, verification of the applicant's eligibility for the program, the accuracy of the calculated amount of assistance awarded to the applicant, and compliance with the regulatory requirements for the funding for the program. Next slide. Due to the urgency associated with the launch of this program last year and the time constraints on the program funding, the Housing Commission used a non-competitive process to award the audit services contract. This process complied with the Housing Commission's procurement policy. The Housing Commission awarded the initial contract to Mckay and Associates in April 2021. Mckay and Associates is a San Diego-based women-owned business that operates nationwide with expertise in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development programs, including program administration. As the COVID-19 Housing Stability Program continued in October 2021, the Housing Commission awarded a new contract to Mckay and Associates to continue to provide quality assurance audit services. The contract was for an 8-month term through June 30th, 2022, with a 1-year renewal option. The compensation through this contract cannot exceed $250,000. Mckay and Associates conducts remote reviews, completes an electronic auditing form, submits results within 72 hours of the review, conducts a minimum of 20 audits per day, and provides weekly reports to Housing Commission staff. Next slide. Additionally, funding has been allocated to support the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program. This includes $8.3 million in federal funds that the Housing Authority authorized on March 4th, as well as the funding that is subject of the separate report to the board this morning. The additional funding has allowed the program to expand in terms of the number of households assisted and the length of time program operations continue. This has increased the number of applicants to serve, which increases the number of applications to audit. In addition, funding requirements have expanded and changed. For these reasons, Housing Commission staff proposes amending the current contract with Mckay and Associates. The proposed contract amendment would increase the maximum allowed compensation for the current contract term as well as the renewal option by $151,100. I'm sorry, $152,100. With this change, the total maximum compensation amount would be $402,100. However, contract expenses are based on a fee per completed audit. If fewer audits are needed, the actual contract expenses would reflect only the cost for the completed audits. Next slide. Housing Commission staff is requesting that the board take actions detailed in the staff report and shown on this slide and the next slide. Next slide. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Scott, do we have any callers on this item?
No, we don't have any callers at this time.
Great. Commissioners, comments, questions? Vice Chair Klempner, you're off mute. Oh, and I see Commissioner, oh, she went back on mute. All right, Vice Chair Klempner, we're gonna go with you. Go.
I'd be happy to make the motion on this after other comments, but I just wanted to thank you for bringing this forward. And obviously, the agency has done a fantastic job with the rental assistance program, but it is an enormous amount of money that was expended very expeditiously in a short period of time. And so I'm glad that we have these safeguards in place to make sure that the people who needed the assistance got it and that it didn't go anywhere it wasn't supposed to go. And so I'm just glad to see that we have oversight on this. And added bonus, it's great that there's a company with expertise in this exact field that also happens to be local. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Vasquez.
Yes, I guess my question is the increase in the compensation for the audits. What is the overall branching philosophy for increasing the compensation?
It's not necessarily increasing the compensation per file, but it's increasing the total amount that we can audit, number of applications we can audit. So we will be able to audit the additional files that have come through the additional funding through the 7.1, as well as an additional item that we will speak on the next item on the board report.
So as a follow-up question, approximately how much of what's the percentage of the files that are completed that will now be able to be audited? And I say files loosely, but cases, let's say.
So the quality assurance process is completed prior to the disbursement of funds. So as applications continue to come in and as we review the applications that have come in most recently in the last few days, we will determine the percentage of applications that will need to be audited. Most of the applications in our staff are being 100% audited, but the staff who have higher tenure or higher quality assurance, we typically have a less sample size of their applications.
That's all. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Vice Chair Klempner kind of gave a lot of the feedback I would have given. So pleased that we're moving forward with this. Do we have a motion?
I'll motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Hester, second by Vice Chair Klempner. We'll go ahead and call the vote. Vice Chair Klempner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
And Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
And I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Moving on to item 102, which is the authorization for additional funding for the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program, we're just talking about, and recommendations for the City Council to authorize the city to apply for a state cash flow loan to support the program. The phone line is now open for public comments on item 102, and you can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There was no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but again, that number is 833-610-2513, and we'll take any public comments after the staff presentation. And this presentation, sorry, my dog. This presentation is also going to be coming from Vice President of Rental Assistance, Carrie Bell. Okay, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair Benvenito and Commissioners. Again, I'm Carrie Bell, Vice President of Rental Assistance. I use my maiden name, which I haven't used in like 2 years, which is so. The Housing Commission operates the City of San Diego COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program, which launched a little more than a year ago. The program helps pay rent and utilities for qualifying households with low income who've experienced financial hardship due to or during the COVID-19 pandemic. Next slide. As of March 30th, the Housing Commission has made payments totaling more than $191 million through this program to help 16,656,000 City of San Diego households with low income. All the funds available for this program are obligated. This includes funding obligated to households with low income whose applicants are pending review, confirmation, and verification of their eligibility and documentation. The total obligations exceed the funding for the program. The program has approximately $4 million available to provide additional assistance payments to qualifying households. However, the program would need more than $70 million to assist current applicants, including those who have preliminary approval, subject to review, and confirmation of their documentation. The amount needed to continue to provide assistance for qualifying households will increase as staff continue to review applications submitted through yesterday. Next slide. The number of applications submitted for this program has continued to rise daily over the past year. This reflects the ongoing significant need in the City of San Diego. More than 46,000 applications have been submitted, and more than 39,000 additional applications were started but not completed. More than 75% of the submitted applications are from households that report income at or below 30% of San Diego's area median income. Next slide. The U.S. Department of Treasury developed a process for the reallocation of federal emergency rental assistance funds that were not obligated in jurisdictions across the country. This process made funds available to high-performing agencies based on demonstrated need. On January 7th, the Treasury Department announced it awarded $8.3 million from jurisdictions nationwide to the City of San Diego for this program. This board and the City Council authorized these funds for this program on February 4th and March 1st, respectively. The Treasury Department also published a notice allowing jurisdictions to reapply for additional reallocation of funds. On January 18th, the Housing Commission submitted its request for additional funding for the City of San Diego. On March 14th, the Treasury Department announced its reallocation of $7.1 million in additional funding to the City of San Diego. This morning, we are asking for the board to recommend that the City Council and Housing Authority authorize the use of these funds for this program. Next slide. In addition, the Housing Commission continues to work with Mayor Todd Gloria's office on other efforts to obtain additional funding. During January, Housing Commission staff met with the state assembly members and state senators regarding the need for additional funding for this program. These meetings included State Senate President pro tempore Tony Atkins and State Senator Scott Weiner. In February, state lawmakers passed State Senate Bill SB 115, which Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law on February 9th. SB 115 is intended to provide local jurisdictions with immediate funding through cash flow loans to support programs such as the COVID-19 Housing Stability Program. Under this legislation, the City of San Diego can apply for a cash flow loan up to the full amount of the Housing Commission's requested in the allocated funding from the federal government. In January, the Housing Commission requested $96.2 million based on an analysis of the program's projected need through May 2022. State cash flow loans must be expended on complete eligible applications that were received on or before March 31st, 2022, and sought to help with rent or utilities that were due during or before March 2022. Federal funding awarded to the city would be used to repay the state loan. However, if federal funds are insufficient to cover this full state loan, or are not received by June 30th, 2023, the state would forgive the balance of the loan. In March, the state provided the loan terms and conditions in the standard agreement required for this program. Next slide. The Housing Commission anticipates that the state cash flow loan would enable the COVID-19 Housing Stability Program to help additional qualifying households that submit their applications by March 31st. The state closed the application for its emergency rental assistance program yesterday. In alignment with the state's program and with the terms of SB 115, the Housing Commission also closed the application for the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program yesterday. Applications were accepted through 11:59 p.m. Although the application has closed, program staff will be continuing to process, reviewing the submitted applications, verifying eligibility, and dispersing remaining payments for qualified households. Next slide. Today, Housing Commission staff is asking the Housing Commission Board to recommend that the Housing Authority and City Council take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on the following slides to authorize the additional $7.1 million in federal funds and the state cash flow loan to help more families through this program. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Scott, any callers?
We have one caller in the queue.
Great.
Caller with the number ending 7968. You may begin making your comments. You have 3 minutes. Caller, number 7968, are you there? Caller number 7968. That's the only caller on the queue on this item.
Okay, maybe there's some technical issue there. Caller, please call back if you do wish to make a comment. Commissioners, any feedback on this item? Questions? Commissioner Hester.
Hi, Madam Chair. Good morning, Housing Commission commissioners and staff. I'm wondering about, so we accepted application up until 11:59 yesterday, and I'm wondering, will we have enough money, or will what? And then if we have a surplus, what then is the responsibility on that surplus? Kind of, if you can talk about that.
So the Housing Commission, for the cash flow loan specifically, you're talking about?
Well, for the rental assistance program, and then.
So with funding, currently we do not have a surplus. With the approval, if we are approved for the cash flow loan and we do receive additional funding more than the applications, we would provide that money back to the state. But the state is providing these funds in tranches, so they're not giving us all of the money at one particular time. We would get a certain percentage of the loan, we would have to expend that amount, and then we would get additional funding to pay for the additional applications.
And then, I guess then my follow-up question to that is what and I'm sorry if you presented this before already. I'm just trying to remember. But what is the number of applications we've turned down? So people asking for help but didn't meet the needs, that sort of thing. Like, is there an opportunity for that group to
maybe I could
reapply?
here, Commissioner. We have been sending the message to our boards that we are oversubscribed and that we would not be able to assist all eligible families. Fortunately, with this SB 115 forgivable loan, we now anticipate that we will be able to help every eligible family with their past due rent up through March 31st. So we do anticipate with the $96 million that we requested, that will be enough to help every eligible applicant with their rents, again, up through March 31st. Beyond that, we will not be able to assist them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Chair, the caller is back on the line if you would.
Great. Yes, yes.
Caller with number ending in 7968. Are you there? Caller at 7968, you can begin making your comment. Are you there?
Okay, caller, can I ask that you submit your information to Scott, perhaps via email, and then we can make sure it gets to the commissioners. I'm a little concerned that there's some disconnect here technology-wise, and I'd hate for you to continue to be frustrated. Granted, if you'd like to continue calling in, of course you're welcome. Oh, there we go. We can hear you. Go for it.
Okay. I just wanted to give you some feedback real quickly. This is Joy Sunyata. Hi there.
Good morning.
I don't know the problem with your system, but I haven't been able to get through several times. So just so I know in the future, I dial the number, I wait in the queue, and you open it up for me, correct?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Go ahead and make your comment.
Okay, but I think you ought to be able to answer my question about my problem with the phone.
That is fair. And yes, that you had it correct.
Okay, so I don't know what happened, but anyway, please look into that. I appreciate it. So let's see, item 102. Okay, I'm ready now. Thank you to the board for all of the work you're doing on everything. I just wanted to be sure and thank you for that. You are so appreciated. And on this item, which I really wasn't going to speak on, I wanted to speak on Lisa Jones's first item. But as you've seen, you're fabulous. You've helped me with some phone information in the past and with other communications. You're absolutely the best. Thank you for all the work you do, Azucena, on all these projects and programs. And so, yes, this stability help is just terrific. And thank you for doing all the work of Azucena and your team. And just know that you're so appreciated. And as a citizen, it just makes it so much easier to get through all of this with the help of the board and the commission and the staff. So that's a quick, spontaneous, I'll try on another item just to try it so I get used to this. And but again, you're all appreciated and love to all.
Joy, thank you very much. But before you hang up, do you want to give us a quick comment about the, you were probably calling it the Alpha Shelter, the bridge program? I think she's probably hung up. Okay. We're all figuring out this technology together. Okay, so at this point, do we have commissioner comments or questions? Commissioner Vasquez, it looks like you're off mute.
Yes, real quick question. It's two-part. As far as the pending applications are concerned, the 39,000 plus, is there a deadline to meet the required information for the applicants?
For the pending applications, those applications, if they were not submitted by March 31st, then they would not be reviewed for eligibility. However, we are reviewing the applications that were submitted and completed before March 31st, and those will be reviewed, as well as ensuring that their debts, rent, or any assistance was before March 31st as well. So 15 requirements.
Okay, so just as a follow-up then, the 39,000 pending applications are not going to be reviewed.
Correct. We did do outreach throughout the month of March to ensure that any pending applications, if they were still interested in the program, that they could submit. And so we did send out emails all of March to those applications to ensure that if they did need assistance still, that they could complete their application and they could complete it before the deadline.
And if I could just add to that, we did see evidence of success with that outreach in that prior to the outreach, we were receiving about 150 applications per day. Yesterday, we received 1,200 applications in one single day. So the outreach was successful for those who were just needing a prompt to get their application submitted.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Yeah, nothing like a deadline. Any other commissioner comments or questions? This is another, I think, example of the commission team just really meeting the moment. No doubt that when you started this role, whenever you started it, you knew that people would just be throwing millions of dollars at you, and you'd be dealing with folks really at the end of the rope, new to this program, new to the Housing Commission, and really just kind of figuring out a way to find success together. So we appreciate the enormous amount of, I'm sure, patience and creativity it takes to meet this moment. So I just want to give another shout out to staff. Joy took a lot of my comments, so good job, Joy. Very well said, in praise of the team here. Do we have a motion or any other questions?
So moved.
Commissioner Vasquez actually came off first. I'm going to give Commissioner Vasquez the motion and Commissioner Mitchell the second. So we'll go ahead and call the vote now. Vice Chair Klumpner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Hubbard.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Aye.
I'll add my vote in favor. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, item 103 is our proposed fiscal year 2023 City Affordable Housing Fund Annual Plan. The phone line's now open for public comments on item 103. You can call 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There was no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but that number is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation from Executive Vice President of Business Administration Suket Dayal and Director of Finance Christelle van der Wind. So please begin whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Benvenuto and Commissioners. I'm Suket Dayal, Executive Vice President of Business Administration and Interim Chief Financial Officer. With me is Christelle van der Wind, our Finance Director. This morning, we seek your approval on the proposed fiscal year 2023 Affordable Housing Fund Annual Plan. We'll start with some background and then discuss fund revenues and amount budgeted for programs. Next slide, please. The City of San Diego's Affordable Housing Fund is composed of two permanent, annually renewable funding sources. First is the Housing Trust Fund, established in 1990. It consists of revenue from housing impact fees on commercial developments and loan repayments. Second is the Inclusionary Housing Fund. This was established in 2003. It consists of revenue from the collection of fees on residential developments and from loan repayments. Now, the developer has the option either to build affordable housing units or pay fees that will be used for the creation and preservation of affordable housing. Next slide, please. This slide displays the collections for both funds over the last 5 years. As you can see, the fee collections fluctuate. Many factors play into collections, including development activity, payback of loans, and when the fees are actually realized. We use a conservative estimate based on historical calculations, and we'll share those numbers as we go through the presentation. Next slide, please. A quick update on recent changes on inclusionary. In 2019, the San Diego City Council approved amendments to the Inclusionary Housing Fund Ordinance. These updates are phased in over 5 years, beginning July 1st, 2020. This slide shows the percentage of residential units that developers will be required to set aside as affordable housing in each year for the 5 years. In the alternative, the ordinance allows for developers to pay inclusionary housing fees in lieu of developing affordable housing units. We're currently at 4% and $17.64. Next slide, please. Now, this is a very successful program, and since inception, the Affordable Housing Fund has assisted with the creation and preservation of over 8,500 units, assisted nearly 22,000 San Diegans experiencing homelessness, and assisted over 300 households to become first-time homebuyers. Next slide, please. And this is where we go over the projected funding. So Fund balances, let's start with the fund balances where beginning fund balances are about $51 million. I do want to point out that this includes funds that are committed in previous years for affordable housing production. And we will have a slide that provides more detail on that. We anticipate $7.4 million of new fund collections for a total of nearly $59 million in fiscal year 2023. Next slide, please. Affordable housing funds may be allocated to programs identified in the list of model programs. For fiscal year 23, we propose allocating funds to rental housing finance, home ownership, and homeless activities. Do want to point out some of the changes or edits to the model programs. The first is we propose establishing a rental housing anti-displacement fund, and this is to provide relocation assistance for very low-income families. Displacement could be for reasons like demolition, rehabilitation, conversion, but I do want to specify these will be for costs that are not covered by any regulatory, federal, state, or other programs. Second, for consistency, we're renaming the Companion Unit Finance Pilot Program to the Accessory Dwelling Unit or ADU Finance Pilot Program. And third, to expand capacity building to provide assistance to homeowners interested in developing ADUs. Chriselle will now provide us details on the allocations. Next slide, please.
Here you can see a detailed description of the fiscal year 2023 proposed funding allocation to the various programs, with $45 million allocated to affordable housing production, close to $3 million for homeownership and ADU programs, and close to $7 million for homelessness programs. Next slide, please. Here's another representation of the proposed allocation. 79% is committed to rental housing finance activity for the production of affordable housing. Next slide. Out of the $59 million available for fiscal year 23, $19 million are already committed to loans already approved by the board. Another $16 million is committed through our fiscal year 20, 21, and 22 NOFAs. The remainder is allocated in this plan with a proposed $10 million going towards the new NOFA. And about $1.4 million of administrative funding is left remaining to be committed in future years. Next slide, please. As part of our annual outreach for the affordable housing plan, we've presented the plan and model programs to 3 community planning groups in January, as well as 4 citywide meetings in February. The plan will then be presented to the Land Use and Housing Committee on April 21st, and will go to the City Council in June for final approval. Next slide. Here's an example of a newly constructed affordable housing development built with financing that included affordable housing fund revenues. Next slide. So today we're asking the board to recommend that the City Council approve the Affordable Housing Fund Plan Annual Plan Program Activity allocation of $57.4 million and its model programs, and authorize the Interim President and CEO to reallocate funds amongst the model program in response to market demands and opportunities. Next slide. And this concludes our presentation. We're available to answer any question. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any callers?
We have one caller in the queue. It appears to be Ms. Sunyata.
Great.
Ms. Sunyata, you're online to provide your comments to the Housing Commission Board. Ms. Sunyata? Ms. Sunyata, you're online if you want to provide your comments to the board. Caller ending in 7968. You can provide your comments now. Ms. Sunyata, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you're online now. You can start making your comments for the board.
Okay, thank you. It's very clear. That worked beautifully. Joy Sunyata, item 103, Affordable Housing Fund. Thank you for the presentation, and to the entire team who worked to put this important document together. Wow, this document is just so critical to all of us. So I just love when it comes forward. And I did my best to work with the agenda in preparation for today. I haven't had a chance to really look at that at the document, the AHS document fully. It's quite big, but I just wanted to be sure and take the time to tell all of you that I know you will approve it and authorize it as requested. I certainly support that you do that. But I just wanted to thank everybody and to tell you how critical this is to have it and to be sure and put it forward and implement it to the best that we can. And I look forward to it coming. Of course, the budget hearings that will be coming up will be critical to this item. And so I think that's enough for now, since I haven't had a chance to fully review it, but know that you're all appreciated. And thank you for the system working. It's just great to have you opening this up for us citizens to participate in government. I really think that's great. And as always, love to all.
Thank you. Scott, do we have any other callers?
That concludes our comments for this item.
Great, thank you. Do we have any other questions from the commissioners? Okay, I'll go ahead and jump in. First of all, thank you. This is such an important tool that we have to get to really leverage the funding to get affordable housing on the ground, and of course the other myriad programs that we've been able to expand to. Without the inclusionary and linkage funds, we wouldn't be able to pay for getting more ADUs into the city's hands, and the first-time home buyer stuff is very exciting. Mckay, can you talk about the relocation piece? That's curious to me. So what, outside of what's already required, because we often hear about that, what would these extra funds go to?
So in recent times, there's been a lot of development at a state level to protect families from just being simply displaced. And that's why we wanted to specify that unless there's no other sources that are there, that's the only time this will kick in. I also want to specify that we put activities in the model programs because it's more of a stopgap in case needed. Then we can go in and we can use that for implementation. So if it's not needed, it's in a model program. We can just come back to you if we need it for approval and then seek that approval. Let's talk about an example. I think the best example would be an SRO. If an SRO downtown does come up, and if they're not protected by any federal or state regulations, that's where we could come back to you and request to allocate some funds to prevent any displacement there or to help relocation on that part.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. And with regard to the how this is often a revolving loan, right? We see these funds come back. They get to give life to other projects in the future, which is really probably one of my favorite pieces of this fund. Is there ever a situation where we forgive the loan? And what would a situation like that look like?
That one I'm going to have to pass to Emily. I don't think
it's a huge what if, but
yeah. Yeah, I'll pass that to Emily.
Yeah, so we typically don't do forgivable loans. You know, obviously the revolving piece is highly important to us to generate future affordable housing, obviously based on the recommendations of this board for future use. There may be scenarios where the financing dictates it. For example, that there's no ability to pay the debt, but we need those units and it's a very highly vulnerable population. There are very one-offs, but again, that comes forward to this board. That is all explained prior to any approval.
Okay, great, thank you. So we wouldn't need to kind of have a caveat for that within the budget. And here's a crystal ball question for you all. I apologize in advance, but I just kind of want to consider all possible outcomes here because, again, such a critical tool for our city. And one of the few, I would argue, dependable and functional tools. There's a lot of pie in the sky ideas about how to get affordable housing on the ground. We know this works. There's developers rely on it. Our unhoused folks rely on it as well. Do you see a revisit of the linkage fee coming? To me, I would just be curious. I'd be curious what you think.
So
Emily is like, nope, you.
Crystal ball question. I do see a revisit of the linkage fee coming. It depends entirely on council and what council decides to do with it. But yes, we can definitely anticipate a revisit of that.
Okay. Okay, great. I recall how the machinations of the inclusionary the last time we revisited it. And I certainly learned so many lessons. And I look forward to applying those to the linkage fee discussion if and when it pops up. Fellow commissioners, any other questions you'd like to raise here?
I don't have any questions. I'll make a motion, but I would just ask staff if at some point in the near future, can you bring us back? I'm intrigued with how the city is spending the in lieu fees. So I'd like an accounting of how much has been collected over the last 5 years, if that's at all possible. But other than that, I'll make a motion, Madam Chair.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Mitchell. Anything else from the other commissioners? Vice Chair Klumpner, you're off mute.
I'm just ready to vote.
There's only a motion, so unless you're here to provide a second.
I'm happy to provide a second.
Johanna was like, I'm stepping in here. Commissioner Hester just spared you. So we'll go ahead and vote. The wheels are falling off. We're almost done here, guys. Vice Chair Klumpner.
Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Absolutely. Aye.
Commissioner Hester.
Aye.
Commissioner Mitchell.
I'm still thinking about it. Hang on. No.
Dad jokes. Okay. Commissioner Babbitt.
Aye.
Okay, and all of my vote in favor. Item carries unanimously. And item 104 is an informational workshop. So this is not an action item. This will be about the Housing Commission's proposed fiscal year 2023 budget. The phone line is now open for public comments about item 104. That number is 833-610-2513 to be placed in the queue. There were no written public comments submitted regarding this item, but that number is 833-610-2513. We'll take public comments after the staff presentation. Executive Vice President of Business Administration, Suket Dayal, and Director of Finance, Christelle Vanderwint, will also be presenting this item. So whenever you're both ready.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Chair Benvenuto and Commissioners. I am still Suket Dayal, Executive Vice President of Business Administration and Interim Chief Financial Officer. I actually asked Scott, he said we have to read it, so that's the reason why. With me is Christelle Vanderwint, our Finance Director. We're here to present a workshop on the San Diego Housing Commission's fiscal year 2023 budget. Next slide, please. So we will start with a quick overview of our proposed 23 budget. Then we'll highlight some key components as we discuss our objectives and deliverables. Next, we'll go over to funding sources and then conclude with the proposed uses of funds. Next slide, please. And the next slide. We're proposing a budget of $557 million. This budget is based upon conservative estimates and continues to advance programs impacting the lives of San Diegans with lower incomes or who are experiencing homelessness. Next slide, please. So this is a quick comparison to budgets from the past. Our proposed fiscal year 23 budget does reflect a decrease from last year's budget. I do want to point out last year's budget included nearly $70 million in a beginning fund balance due to the ongoing funds for rental assistance payments on the Housing Stability Assistance Program. We have not included any amount in this year's budget and are closely monitoring additional funding opportunities, as you heard today from Carrie, regarding the potential state cash flow loans. As we learn more, we may include an amount based on funding received and our disbursement estimates in the 2023 budget. Next slide, please. The $557 million balanced budget with a team of 370 will enable the Housing Commission to continue to help low-income families pay their rent, provide opportunities for these households to become more financially self-reliant, preserve and create more affordable housing rental units, and administer programs that address homelessness crisis in our city. I'll now go over the objectives and deliverables. Next slide, please. And the next. So let's dive in a little. With this budget, the Housing Commission's federal Section 8 Housing Choice Voucher Program will be able to continue to help approximately 16,000 low-income households pay their rent. Our moving to work status provides us with the unique flexibility to implement a variety of innovative, cost-effective approaches to provide housing assistance. We've developed boutique programs like the Monarch School Project with the Monarch School, the Guardian Scholars Program with San Diego State University, where we partner with the community to provide a holistic solution that combines housing and services. It will also allow us to continue to assist 480 households through the new Emergency Housing Voucher Program and continue our great landlord partnership program to attract and retain landlords to rent to federal rental assistance participants. Next slide, please. The proposed budget also supports the creation and preservation of affordable housing. This includes committing $12 million for a potential affordable housing acquisition. We have $8 million budgeted to rehabilitate Housing Commission-owned properties. Now, this is to ensure our commitment to meet and exceed housing quality standards. The budget also proposes investing up to $25 million to reduce our debt on our affordable housing portfolio in order to increase cash flows for future opportunities. This includes $10 million note reduction on the Valley Vista and Kearney Vista properties, and a $15 million payoff on Greystone Fannie Mae loans on our central portfolio. We have also proposed committing up to $13 million in gap financing to developers to leverage and increase the affordable housing supply in our city. And lastly, but not least, dedicating $6.3 million towards first-time homebuyer program. Next slide, please. Housing Commission continues to dedicate substantial resources to address homelessness in our city. This includes programs that further the goals of the Community Action Plan on Homelessness for the City of San Diego. In addition, the Commission's Housing First San Diego initiative, which was launched in November 2014, continues to create permanent housing solutions, a need identified in the Community Action Plan on Homelessness. Housing First San Diego, and a presentation was made on this at the last board meeting, has created over 10,000 housing solutions for individuals and families experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. Programs of this initiative include the Landlord Engagement and Assistance Program, or LEAP, Homeless Prevention and Diversion, and Rapid Rehousing, amongst others. Next slide, please. Let's talk about the sources. So we're going to jump into this a little bit. This slide shows a comparison of funding sources for fiscal year 23 and 22. We have three main funding sources: federal, local, and state. And I want to highlight some of the higher variances, whether it's in dollars or percentages. So let's take a look at the federal section. The Section 8 increase, this includes the one-time use of funds we mentioned earlier for our note reductions. The successful implementation of the Emergency Housing Voucher Program is also reflected in this increase. Moving on down, continuing on the federal, the home funds, there's an increase that's due to the anticipated funding of loans based on the milestone accomplishments of development projects. Let's move to our local funding. On local funding, I want to highlight city general funds and other local funds. We're still discussing with the city the potential use of city general funds for homelessness programs. And that ties into the next bullet, which is the state funding. Now, in general, state funding typically is based on need and expenses, and we've seen an increase in the state funding for homelessness. However, these numbers are also part of our conversations with the city. So we apologize, we don't have final numbers right now. We are working with the city, and we expect to have a better picture by next week, and we'll update prior to seeking approval of the board. Moving down, the program and property reserves line item, most of the decrease there, as mentioned earlier, is the $70 million that we had in last year's budget as our beginning fund balance. I do want to point out that this number also includes beginning fund balances for other programs, as well as the property reserves. Next slide, please. The federal revenue continues to be the primary source of funding, with moving to work funds constituting 70% of our budgeted new revenue for fiscal year 2023. Crystal will now provide information on our expenses. Next slide, please.
Next, we'll look at the proposed uses of funds. Next slide. This is a year-over-year comparison of funding uses by major category. In the proposed budget, anticipated expenses decreased by almost 51 million or 10% compared to fiscal year 22. The decrease in housing program expenses primarily due to the previously mentioned conclusion of the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program, or HSAP. The decrease is offset by an increase in property expenses related to the proposal to pay down outstanding debt on the Housing Commission's affordable housing properties. The capital expenditure include acquisition of affordable housing and renovation of SDHC owned properties. Next slide. The graph on this slide displays our total funding uses by major division. The majority of the funding uses in fiscal year 23, 57%, are in the rental assistance division, as shown in the dark blue area. Next slide. Here's an overview of the budgeted program expenditure for our rental assistance division. The majority of the spending is in housing assistance payments, with the remaining allocated towards programs such as Landlord Partnership Program, the Guardian Scholars Program with San Diego State University, and the Housing Commission's Achievement Academy, which helps housing program participants become more self-sufficient. Next slide. In our real estate division, the budgeted expenditure for fiscal year 23 are in the following four main categories. Loan programs for the development of affordable housing, the first-time homebuyer program, and the new accessory dwelling unit financing program, operation of our SDHC owned affordable housing properties, the proposed pay down of debt on the Housing Commission affordable housing properties, and capital purchases, which include acquisition of affordable housing, as well as renovation of our existing properties. Next slide. The fiscal year 2023 budget will support Housing Commission homelessness program, as well as the agency's administration of city programs, as shown on this slide. The Housing Commission budgeted expenditure will be more than 128 million. There's a close collaboration across division within our agency to design a broad spectrum of initiatives to create housing solutions in our community. As you can see here, the rental assistance voucher directly benefiting the homeless population are included in this homeless budget. Now, Sukhet will take you through the rest of the presentation. Next slide.
So our proposed staffing levels include, sorry, I think there's an echo now. I'm going to go ahead and continue. Oh, it's gone. Our proposed staffing levels include 7 staff for the rental assistance and additional 7 staff for the homeless housing innovations program. There's also a request for 1 person from the real estate team. And as programs grow, we wanted to ensure the support staff keeps up as well. So we're requesting 3 additional staff in the operations and support program. Next slide, please. So next board meeting scheduled for Thursday, May 5th, will be recommending your approval for our proposed fiscal year 23 budget, which is currently in the amount of $557 million. I do want to point out this budget will be adjusted as needed as additional information becomes more available. Main factors, the state's cash flow loan program to support the COVID-19 Housing Stability Assistance Program, guidance from the city, and other opportunities for the Housing Commission to further assist families with low income. Next slide, please. This concludes your presentation and open it up for comments and questions.
Thank you. Scott, do we have any callers?
No, there are no callers on this item.
Okay, great. Commissioners, any questions or comments? This is an informational item.
Yes.
Commissioner Vasquez.
Sorry. I didn't wait to be called on. So thank you for putting this together. It's very informative. I just want to say I can only imagine how much work I went through to try and foresee what's going to happen in the future. I'm just going to give you some unsolicited advice. and living through 2 recessions and seeing how the market changes so dramatically and how the cost of goods increases or decreases. I've always wondered why the government agencies didn't start kind of like taking the FDR approach of building when we are on an economic decline instead of just doing stimulus packages, but making sure that we as an agency are purchasing up that tax equity and then getting people housed when the economy turns. And so I was just curious as to whether or not that's something that you guys are looking into, is taking advantage of the economic opportunities when they present. And because we're at the peak of a recession right now, or we're at a 5% increase in inflation, it seems, and then the interest rates are going to be going up by the Federal Reserve Bank. It seems like we're going to be hitting that in the next 3 to 4 years. And so I just wanted to put that out there. My question is, as it pertains to the budget, is what would be more helpful in determining where we are as an agency would be if we could see a comparison against other agencies that are similarly situated. So we could say, oh, this is a good budget, or or have something to compare the facts of a budget to. So I'm just putting it out there. I know you guys have tons of work, but I think it would be helpful for all of us to see how we fare in comparison to other similarly situated agencies.
Well, I'll just maybe interject here that excellent point about the market conditions. I think you'll find that the last time the real estate market in San Diego was down significantly was when we added 800 units to our portfolio. We are at the point where it's looking like in some respects there's a recession, but it's not happening in our real estate market at this point. But we're certainly keeping a very close eye on it. If that were to happen, we would do exactly what we did last time, which is put all our resources into taking advantage of that situation. And we are certainly happy to have conversations about our agency in comparison with others. What you will find the longer you look at other agencies is just how very different they are to each other. You'll find smaller agencies with 3 or 4 times the staff that we have, because they are in different parts of the country, different kinds of properties under their portfolio. For example, East Coast Pittsburgh or a Cleveland is going to have a much smaller budget than we do, but have 2 or 3 times the staff that we do, because they're heavier into public housing. Their properties are not nearly as nice as ours are. But as far as looking at our agency in comparison with maybe other West Coast agencies, we'd be happy to walk you through some of those, because we certainly have been doing exactly that ourselves. We'd be happy to share that information with you.
Sorry, I must share a quick story. I promise it'll just be a minute, but we went to a conference once, and we were sitting with Alaska at the table, and they were telling us how their inspectors have planes because they got to fly to do the inspections. And that just floored me when Jeff mentioned how agencies are different, where you have our inspectors are driving and their inspectors are flying from just to do the inspections. So, and how many inspections they got done in one day versus how many inspections we were able to do in one day. But definitely something we can look into. We won't use Alaska as a comparison.
Any other commissioner comments or questions? I think one of the things that Commissioner Vasquez was kind of pointing to, which was the economic uncertainty that we are heading into, super fair point. One thing to watch for this one is going to be obviously the fact that the real estate market is so very, very different this time around, right? But curious kind of what you're seeing as far as how you may want to turn certain things up or certain things down, particularly the financing for acquisition of affordable housing or anything like that, because the numbers that you put in there we may find that they don't, I think it was 12 or 13 million, is not going to go as far as you wanted it to go. So when you say the 13 million, are you targeting a certain number of units, or is it 13 million because that's what's working, and then we'll kind of prioritize seeing as far as we seeing what we need, you know, in Q3 or something like that?
I think it's all of the above. So if we just take $13 million and let's just say we take an average cost of $12 million for acquisition, let's say we take $500,000 in average cost, that's just going to buy us 24 units. So in a perfect world, we could leverage that into a lot more units. So we're looking into anything and everything, but do want to acknowledge the tough market that it is right now. And so, yeah, we're going to keep a close eye on it, but at the same time, the deal has to make sense from not only from make sense today, but also from running it over 30 years.
Yeah, Commissioner Hester.
All right. I've been meaning to ask this question. Are we keeping track of affordable housing covenants that are expiring, perhaps? And where are we at on that? Can you just speak on that a little bit, please? I'm very curious.
Yeah, I can start us off and Emily can provide a lot more information. The short answer is yes, we do. Part of the preservation study, we identified everything that's coming, that has happened, everything that's going to happen. Emily, do you want to add more to it?
Yeah, and a little bit preemptive to that, we did build out an affordable housing database and sort of supplemented it with the preservation piece. We also have a very dynamic preservation team led by Wendy DeWitt, who is carrying out a lot of the recommendations of the study. We do a tracker, a 10-year look back tracker of those expiring covenants, and we are reaching out to the owners, seeing what the opportunities are for, you know, us to potentially assume those assets if that opportunity presents. But yeah, we're very, very active in watching those expiring covenants. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I had another question and it just fell out of my head, but it was a good one. Okay, thanks everybody for the good questions, and I don't envy your job having to really rely on crystal ball and the most volatile of times. And so thank you for building in a strong contingency fund. That reserve money is probably going to come in pretty handy. Fingers crossed we don't need it. Final call for more questions or comments from the commissioners. Okay. Then I think since that's an informational item and we didn't have any action required, we can move on to these final lines, which are, this will conclude the board's special meeting today, and we are adjourning at 10:33. Wow. Thank you, everybody. Happy Friday. Nice seeing you all. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.